Okay, we're COMP308, and it's week 10, lesson 10, part 1, and we're talking about how to, again, expressize your portfolio site. Now, last week, I also kind of put up, your assignment for your final, right? So on your final assignment, and if you look at what it looks like, let me just pull this up for a second. It's a final team assignment. Here's your project. When my computer chooses to respond. Here it is. So it's due April 17th. Like I said, it's worth 30% of your mark, plus your presentation, which is worth 10% of your mark. That's 40% total, right? So there's a few things that I've put up that you can build with the mean stack and so on. One of them is like a survey site that you can put together. Right? So you don't have a chance to do whatever you want. I'm kind of directing you to build one of these three. A survey site. So you guys know what a survey site is. Like SurveyMonkey would be a good example of a survey site, right? Now, does it have to be as complex as that? Absolutely not. It has to have basics, and we'll talk about what I'm asking for. Kind of a brackets tournament web app. All right, so let's take a look at that. So if I was going to look at tourney brackets, right? There's one called challenge, and what this does is it allows you to create a tournament bracket, right? If you guys know what this is. So if I sign in, I think I still have a username. Yeah. So I can look at my tournaments that I got going on. As an example, I've got this. Made one called Karate 1. As an example, I got rock paper scissors. I got some programming challenges. I got some other these tournaments, and they're all done, right? Let's put together a new tournament as an example. I'm just giving you an example of a site that's already out there. So I want to give you some examples because otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to talk about something and you're going to go, what is he saying? What does he mean you can build this? So again, this is some complexity in here. I logged in, if you notice, right? Which means you're going to need to do some authentication with MongoDB and so on, which we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks, right? So if I go to new tournament, and let's say, example, I'm the host. You don't have to exactly do it this way, and you don't have to build your own URL. It's not necessary. But let's say, for example, the tournament name is going to be COMP308. We're going to compete, hackathon, right? And I can kind of build the same kind of name out of they give me the option of putting a URL in there, right? Letters, numbers, and underscores, okay? Here we go. Single elimination tournament is what I want to do. And as an example, I want to include a match for third place. And it says, provide a list of participants, or you can host a sign-up page. Again, for you guys, I'll make it simple. And then I can put a start time and so on. And I can just press save and continue if I want to. So here's my single elimination tournament. It's called COMP308 Hackathon, right? As an example. And if I want to, I can go into it and start the tournament off and so on, right? I can actually add some participants to this thing. So let's add some participants. I'll say, we'll put Tom in there, right? I'll add him in there. I'll put Roy, Daryl, Raymond, Mark, a bunch of people, right? Let's put some other people here. Kevin, Harrison. I'm making these up. Well, Tom's not made up, but that's just, Marcel. Okay, so there's like 8 people there, right, in the tournament. And let's say once I've got my tournament, I can go back to bracket, and automatically it'll generate the brackets for me, right? So it'll say something like this. Well, Tom and Marcel are going to fight, right? And then who's the winner of Tom and Marcel? Just like a bracket, like a sports brackets or whatever, right? or Raymond and Mark are going to fight. Who's going to be, the one that's going to do it? So I can actually go in here to the tournament, to the tourney, right? And I can decide, once these are the brackets, I can start the tournament off. So here's the tournament started. And then I can decide who wins. So for example, I say, well, you know what? The scores are Tom 4, Marcel 3. So Tom's the winner. Submit scores. And then now if you notice, Tom progresses. Just like a normal. This is a single elimination I'm asking you guys to make, right? If you guys are going to make this. And again, here's Raymond and Mark, right? Let's go through this. This time we'll make it Raymond 3, Mark 4. Mark's going to win. Right? And then Mark progresses. So now Tom and Mark are fighting, right? Just like any tournament, right? And then let's do a couple more. Let's do them all. So I'll say Roy progresses. I'm not going to make. I don't have to put the points. Okay, it says I do. Let's say Roy 1-0. There we go. And Daryl. Let's try who's going to win here. 2-1. You guys getting it? Yeah, I think you might, yeah. But in your case, you want to try and make it simple, right? So 1-0, Tom and Rui. Okay, we're good now. 1-0 for him, and then finally you get 1-9. So he didn't let me. And then of course you've got your last winners here, Tom and Daryl. Who's the bronze match? Do that one first, obviously, right? And let's say you do. Rui won because he got 2-1, and so he's second, and then Tom and Daryl, well, guess who's going to win, right? Right? And then submit score. So the tournament's done. I can end the tournament, and when it's done, it can tell me who's the supreme champion, Tom, where the adversaries, Daryl, maybe next time, Roy. And then here's the full results if you want to, with everybody 4th and 5th place and so on. So again, an idea, this is one site that does way more than I would need for you guys to do in your tournament brackets. But this is definitely an example. It's called challenge.com. You can certainly look at the site for inspiration and stuff that you'd want to add, change, whatever, right? So if I go back, that's the second option. So survey site would be the first one where you make a Survey Monkey-like page where you kind of make a survey. And then the last one is the most difficult one. To challenge you guys, I don't recommend, if you're not good with programming, that you do this one. And I'm being honest. Like if you're not good at coding and whatever, or your JavaScript is not so strong or whatever, this last option would be the most difficult one. An incident management site. Like, how do you do it? So these are nice to say, but let's go into details a little bit of what all this means. Right? Now, some of you might be worried. They're like, holy crap, this is a big thing. Yeah, it's a big project. It's worth 40% of your final mark. Right? So you got to start it off now. There's some common requirements, and I put them in here. For example, your web app must be designed using well-structured semantic HTML, JavaScript, and blah, blah, blah. Your site must be responsive. You can use Bootstrap or Foundation. That's kind of required. Your CSS must reside in their own folder. Simple things that you have marks for. JavaScript files, libraries, and all that stuff have to have their own folders. Images and multimedia have to have their own folders. All your code has to be error-free. Simple stuff, right? Your MongoDB database must be hosted online. I'm not making it an option for you to host it locally. So you have to kind of use MongoLab and others. There's other out there that will do it for you. There's free. It's free. Note, it is recommended that you use a provider like MongoLab, Google Cloud Platform. I wouldn't recommend the last three because they all cost money, right? But if you want to, you go ahead and do whatever you want. Internal documentation, external documentation is like, I'm not going to mention those again. Internal documentation means commenting, please. That's what it means. And then, of course, GitHub. Share your files on GitHub. And you and your partners each have to have kind of equal commits, like I talked about before. So this is like your common requirements. And these are worth 30 marks. Just your common requirements are worth 30 marks, right? Okay. Now, here's your survey site option. And I give you specifics for the survey site. So again, if you notice, user management and site security. So that's one piece of it, and that's worth 8 marks. of the 15 marks. Half the marks are user site and security and so on, right? Here's another one. If you notice, users can create a survey, 6 marks. After a user is registered and logged in, he or she can create a survey based on 1 or 2 possible survey templates. An example would be a multiple choice survey or an agree, disagree, or short answer. Don't make too many. Like keep it simple, like really, really simple, right? So you don't want to give the user the ability to create any survey he wants. That's just too complex for the beginning. So make it so it's a fixed template. You got 10 questions you're going to make on your survey. That's it. One of those, right? The user should be able to customize survey questions. Okay, so you can make so that the survey question A, B, C, D will be different questions, kind of thing, as opposed to fixed questions. And the user should be able to create a lifetime for the survey. And in other words, when it becomes active and when it expires. So that's just basically based on date time. So if it's beyond this date, can't access it. Anonymous users can respond to any active survey, so they don't have to log in, right? And there's a secure reporting section. This is where the login takes effect, where the registered user can get some statistics on the survey, how many answers, that kind of stuff. So this is all database stuff, right, that you're going to have to work with. So there's a heavy database component to a lot of this. And the best way, of course, to handle it is for us to talk about database. So for the next part of our course, we're going to be talking about MongoDB. We're going to start that today or tomorrow, depending on how we go today. So I want to talk about your assignment 3 today more. And then over the course of the next weeks or so, we're going to be talking about authentication, database schemas, all that kind of stuff to get into the MongoDB side, right? Now remember, next week on Wednesday, we have that visitor coming in for cloud computing, which is going to kind of tick off our cloud computing component, right? Talking about cloud computing, he's going to do this whole session on it from Microsoft. It should be on Wednesday at 10:30, our 10:30 class. Okay. So that's the survey site one. And if you notice, the brackets, the tourney brackets option is also very similar. User management and security. That's another. I should have probably put this in as a common requirement, but they're slightly different from each one. That's why I kind of put them in their own space. So once you log in, you can create a new tournament. After a user is registered and logged in, he can make a new single elimination tournament. And what that means is just what I showed you in the tourney brackets, where you have that single elimination. Don't try something fancy like double elimination or anything crazy like that. Just single elimination is okay. I recommend you stick down to only allowing even numbers of users, right? Because once you start getting into odd numbers of users, they start doing things like you get buys and all that stuff. I don't care about the rules of the tournament so much. I want you just to create something that's a working version, right? That does single elimination with even numbers of users, 8, 6, 10, whatever. Once you get too complex, because if you have, think about this, if you have only 7 users, right, seven players, what's the 7th guy? Who's the 7th guy going to fight, right? So the 2, it goes 2, 2, 2, and then the other guy's out, so he's got to get a buy. And you're going to have to set up a system of buys, and you know what? It's too complex. So for you guys doing this stuff. So that I'm saying keep it simple. So that's the tourney itself. Users can register players, that kind of thing. I'm not going to make it so that they register themselves. It's too complex. An active tournament will display a list of players to anonymous users. So anonymous user can actually go in and see who's playing, like listed by tournament, right? And then there's tournament management, and this tournament management piece is when the person logs in, and then they control when it kind of starts off and when it finishes, and only the winners. All this stuff is going to be handled by the registered user, right? And the last piece, which I fully believe is the most difficult, most complicated piece, right? Incident management. Person logs in, and once they log in, they get an incident dashboard that comes in, and basically what happens is you can create an incident record. Who knows what incident management is, by the way? It's like ticket. When you open up a support ticket, right? We're making a support site for, let's say you want to make it for a company that wants to log any support requests. So someone calls up the phone and says, "Hey, it's broken," whatever it is, right? But you can log it here with an incident management system, right? So again, if you read through these things, it's not that, none of them are really that difficult. Now remember, there's also going to be 3 of you working on this at a time. It's not like you're working alone. So each of you can kind of consume different pieces of it and kind of put it together. But again, I highly recommend. I'm only giving you these three options. In the past, I've given options like do whatever you want, right? And then what happened is people would like run off a cliff, right? And then they wouldn't finish, and they would fail, right? I don't want that to happen. It's a practical UI that you're going to build, very simple. I don't want any fancy stuff. Like truly, it just has to be responsive, and you can put that together in like 2 minutes now with Bootstrap or Foundation. Foundation is what we talked about. You can use Foundation. It works nicely with Node because it's just a front-end framework. It doesn't have to be Bootstrap, so it's perfectly fine. Or you can use others. If you know another front-end framework that's better, like let's say you like HTML5 boilerplate.com and you want to use that as opposed to one of the other ones, it's fine too. As long as it's responsive, I'm good. Right? So again, 3 options. Please partner up with somebody. Don't try this on your own. It's a lot of work to do by yourself, and it's meant to be a group project. I know some of you may want to choose to be on your own because working with other people is tough, right? I would highly recommend not. So by next week, so this is this week, this is officially when you get this thing. Even though I gave it to you last week, right? By next week, I want to know who your partners are, what you're working on, which one of these 3 options, right? So that means when we meet next week on Tuesday, I want to have that information, right? So please partner up with somebody before then. Talk about what you're working on and timelines and who's working on what. I want to know what your strategy is to finish this thing off because we only have a few short weeks, right? Now, keep in mind that weeks 12 and 13, so now we're sitting at week 10, right? Next week we have the database guy coming in, the cloud guy coming in, right? That's week 11. Week 12, when we get into week 12, right? That's 12 and 13 are just work weeks. So usually what I'm going to do is if I talk about anything in week 12, I'll talk more about authentication and database strategies. That'll be the day when we get back together, right? Because I think one of the most difficult pieces of this one is how to authenticate with MongoDB, right, as an example, and how to connect, what kind of database strategy are you going to use in order for you to make all this stuff work, right? So it's not as simple as, here you go ahead and run with it, right? We've got to talk about how to implement all this stuff, and I'm going to be here to support you guys because week 12 and 13, the majority of it is going to be work time when we get together, and then I help you guys build out your stuff. So you're not going to be alone, guys. It's not like I'm going to leave you in the dust and say, okay, see you later. I'm going to keep teaching until the end, right? It won't be happening like that. Probably week 12 would be the last teaching day. We might have a little bit of authentication during week 12 and more DB stuff, but that's about it. And it'll be only one of the 2 days we get together. Any questions around your final project? Come on. Okay, so from the survey site perspective, that's a good question. So you're saying, how do you customize? The only thing you're customizing is questions. So you're going to make a standard template, right? Don't try and make it so that the guy can, or the user can customize everything, can make his own, the number of questions and the type of questions, because that becomes too complex. So pick 1 or 2 templates. Even 1 template is okay. Like as an example would be something like, and this is why I say the survey option is the easiest one to do. Because survey would be like you make 1 set of questions or one template, and the user just modifies his questions, and then once the survey becomes active, right, then anybody can answer the survey. That's how it's supposed to work, right? So there's some complexity around this because you still gotta the template isn't going to be changed. The template is how you're gonna. It's almost going to be creating a schema for you, if you will, to answer questions, and then but each result or each answer is going to be stored in its own record inside the database. So the record will have the answers for the survey, right? And it'll also house all the questions for the survey because the questions are going to be unique because it's going to be customized, right? So if you have a survey, you might have another, we're going to talk about Mongo today a little bit, and we'll talk about collections and documents because the way MongoDB works, who's ever done MongoDB or any kind of NoSQL database? Anybody? Okay, if you haven't done it, today's the day we're going to talk about it more. And remember in SQL, databases, right? Relational databases, you have things like, you have tables, right? And you have the database, and you have records, and you have fields, right? Well, in MongoDB, you have none of that. You don't have any of those things. They're called different things. You can simulate the same things with a NoSQL database, but NoSQL databases are schemaless, which means they can have one thing, they can have 10 things, they can have 100 things in their records, right? And every record can be totally different. So we have to set up a schema, and we're going to do that with something called Mongoose, right? Mongoose. Okay. So, so for you, it's just a matter of creating one record for every response. If I respond from the user, from a survey perspective, I'm kind of answering the survey. When I'm done and I click submit, it submits all the responses in one single record, right? And then every time I respond, and that's for that table, if you will. You're going to create a new, I'm doing finger quotes here, a new table for every survey that you're going to create, because you can create multiple surveys based on the same template. So I make a template, I customize the questions, and then the user should be able to respond to those questions, but I can make another survey with another set of questions based on the same template, right? Okay, so again, easiest option. There's still some complexities around it. Okay, any other questions? Guys, I know you guys must have questions on the side there. Questions? Can't think of anything. You're going to have questions, guaranteed, 100%. This is not easy. Please think about me as the project sponsor for these things. I want you to drill me for the requirements. I've put as many requirements as I can at a high level here. There are definitely smaller little details you need to get clarification on as you build out your project, right? Again, you only have 4 short weeks to get it all done, packaged and delivered, right? By the Tuesday or the Wednesday of week 14, right? And the Friday is when it's actually due, but Tuesday and Wednesday we're going to be doing our presentations, right? So that's what I'm saying. Don't have a lot of time here. I would not leave this one for the last minute. Okay, and I'll stop recording this one.